TV. Aaron and Paul join me once again, and our guest this week will be Radio Nottingham's ice hockey correspondent, Owen Bradley. First, we're going to be looking back at the weekend games, and later on we're going to be looking ahead to the Continental Cup and also the other weekend games in the Elite League. Also, we'll be looking at two hot topics this week, you lucky people. The Derek Campbell ban, we'll have our opinions on that, and also the situation in Cardiff, is it spiralling out of control? But first, we'll go back to the weekend, Panthers versus Blaze. I enjoyed it, I thought it was a really good game.
It wasn't a classic, was it? You know, it was a bit scrappy in places, but we got the win. That's what counts.
Yeah, but I genuinely thought it was a really good game. It was entertaining, plenty of goals, plenty of incident.
Sorry.
Go on.
I mean, I wouldn't say it was I wouldn't class it as a fantastic game personally. I thought there were some decent plays in there. Some of the goals that were scored, and one particular save.
The save, the short-handed save from Zacharias was absolutely phenomenal. I think.
Yeah. Well, it's the save of the season so far for me, and could be a contender for save of the season come the end of it. But no, I thought it was a decent game between two teams, which I think, when we look back at the end of the season, will be quite close in these games. But
yeah.
Some decent plays, I thought, and a good penalty shot goal, a good save.
Yes.
A blooper.
And some quality distribution from Zacharias as well.
Oh,
lovely
yeah.
stick pass that
isn't that always the case though, where you sometimes get a netminder who and he did make a couple of absolutely superb saves in the match. I think one glove save I remember towards the end.
Yeah.
But then he made an absolute howler, which led to Panthers' fourth goal.
He did, but I think overall you have to say I think he's looking like a quality netminder, and I think Blaze have picked up somebody pretty decent there. Look, the mistake is horrendous, but I wouldn't let that shadow his overall performance, which I thought was pretty decent, and he deserved man of the match for me. So.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of commentary fans actually saying that we were taking the mick a bit, but I don't think we were. I think he deserved the man of the match.
Who else would you have given it to?
I think the only one was Kale Tanaka, who scored two goals.
Yeah.
He scored that brilliant penalty shot.
Quality,
but I think he was probably the only other candidate on the Blaze side.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's, I think the only sort of worry for me as a Panthers fan was that second period where, we were average at best. Yeah,
I think we did.
I think we did. We're 2-0 up. We'll sit back. And look where we ended up.
The thing is with Panthers, though, don't you always feel, and especially this season, you always feel that they've got that extra gear that they can go into.
Yeah, true. I mean, I know we've mentioned about gelling and stuff like that, but I think from a Panthers point of view, we were treated to something really special last season, and I know that I think you had a conversation with Emily Breton on Twitter about how this team has won so many games on the trot and has more points this season than what last season's team had. But I still think there is room for this team to gel even more, and that's where the gears are going to come from.
Well, you saw that in Coventry the weekend before last, where they did go up to that extra level. I don't think beyond that we've actually seen it happen, but you're right, I think the potential for it to happen is there.
Oh yeah, definitely, I agree, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll take a look at some of the other games that took place on Saturday. The first one we'll look at is the Cardiff Devils against Edinburgh Capitals, and our correspondent Sean Phillips has the details.
Okay, so Saturday night's game against Edinburgh. That's the best way to describe it. The Devils were very poor defensively. It was great to get the points at home, but defensively we just were abysmal. Dan Lacosta again kept us in the game. He was probably responsible for only one goal, which Hayes scored the breakaway. Lacosta didn't really challenge him much, which we expected him to be good at breakaways and not worry about those sort of opportunities, but what can you do? Going forward a lot better. Mac Faulkner was back to his usual self. Morris got a hat-trick, although we thought it was only 2 goals, so Chris Blight looks to be really struggling. Phil Hill's been totally anonymous, and Matt Myers looks to be carrying an injury, but I'm not entirely sure. Nothing's been announced. But all in all, good to get the points and a good spectacle for the crowd. And if you were a new fan, brilliant. They'll be back. For any Blaze fans or Giants fans watching, I'll be live tweeting the game on Thursday from @Cardiff Bay Live. With a bit of linesman experience, I'll be giving you a bit of a neutral view on the game. hopefully, despite wearing this probably gives off a bit of a bad vibe, but as a linesman I'll be sympathising with the linesmen and the referees on their calls, and hopefully giving you guys live play-by-play updates with not so much bias. So check us out, and hopefully we'll get to some away games soon. So back to you guys.
So Sean there with his views on the Devils against the Caps. Owen joins us. Good to see you, mate. Thanks for joining us.
Nice to be back,
again.
guys.
Yeah. Yep. Always good to have you on the show, mate. So, Devils, a really, really important win for them, that. And for a while on Saturday, it looked like the Caps may pull off a surprise victory.
It's an interesting situation, to say the least, in Cardiff. It looks pretty chaotic from the outside looking in. You know, we're not party to what's going on behind closed doors there. I kind of get the sense that the coach needs to be left to coach in many ways, because I think the squad's there. They gave it a lot of hype before the season, and then obviously the news this week with Phil Hill's departure, which for me makes no sense at all. I don't know what the guys think, but it seems to have shocked basically everyone, including a lot of players in the league.
Yeah, that's it.
It looked like they needed to pick somebody, and he was the one that got it. But we'll talk about that later.
We shall talk about that a little bit later, of course. Looking at some of the other games, of course, a big incident in Giants against Steelers, 4-2 victory for the Giants. But of course, Gord Baldwin getting a 5-game ban, which was for kicking, but was really a bit of a stamping.
Well,
and looking at the video, there can be absolutely no arguments against it.
And they haven't really argued it, have they? To be honest, to a certain degree.
Some of the fans have.
Well,
apparently, he was off. He was off balance a little bit, and he was putting his foot down. But it's all right. I live with the Sheffield fans, so I know what they're like.
It's a great result for the Giants. So
superb, absolutely,
really important result.
A lot was billed of that game, and obviously the video beforehand and all that malarkey and Big Doug going back. But I think it's a great result for them, and obviously the return of Peacock as well is a massive coup, shall we say, for the Giants.
I was looking at his stats over the weekend. Apparently he was 1+3 on Saturday and then 2+3 on Sunday in Coventry, which is like that's some going for when you're just coming back. Considering he was 0+0 in 5 games in Denmark, so he obviously had it in him.
It's a shame that he's come back in a way, though. I think we see it so
see
often.
somebody go out there and make a go of it. Yeah.
But it's not happening, is it?
You know, it's different circumstances with every player. You know, David Clark's tried it, Ashley Tate's tried it. There's quite a few. It's good to see Robert Farmer go out and give it a try in the East Coast as well. And I think a player like Robert Lakovitz, I think his ceiling is going to have to go abroad at some point, and maybe he'll be the one to stick it out. Who knows? But I think for British hockey to make the next step, and we'll talk a bit about that later, I'm sure. I think it's going to have to take players to go elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Fife won Hull 4. That was an interesting one. I think it was an unexpected result as well. I think we all said last week we expected Fife to win that game, but a real character win for the Stingrays.
Looking on Twitter though, it seemed that Fife really didn't turn up to that one. From what I've seen, obviously from Laura, good old Fife.
And Laura's usually very fair.
Yeah, from what I could understand from her Scottish tweets, they didn't really play that well. So, but a great result for Hull, and they needed that in a way after a few of their recent results. But
also another couple of bans coming out of that game with Jeff Smith, Jeff Smith, and Mr. Nickerson, who is the most enforcing-looking enforcer I think I've ever seen from his picture. But
some of the game anyway.
Well, but I think the problem with Fife is that they are lacking goals, and I think it's pretty obvious from their results so far. They really do need a sniper.
And that's the comments we've been getting. And, out of Fife, we've got Andrew Birrell saying it was a poor weekend for Fife. They need to get their scoring heads on, or it's going to be a long season for them. Could be right.
And our old mate Random Pesh.
Nearly.
He said Flyers need a sniper, but with no free slots, not likely unless someone needs gas. Chances galore, but can't shoot. So, it sounds like they're making the chances, but just got no one to pop it into the net.
Well, that's one positive that you could take out of it, relating to any sort of sport. If you're not creating chances, then that's when you worry. If you can create and then take them maybe at another time, then...
We've been talking about Panthers not clicking, but all the time we've been making the chances. It's just they've not, somebody's not been on the end of the pass, final pass perhaps. But
it's hard to find a sniper though. There's not that many out there, and
Well, Sheffield's managed it, but I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little while.
Yeah, they've got to fill the stands somewhere.
Final one to look at, Braehead against Stars on Saturday. Clam 5, Stars 1. A really good result for Braehead, and I think when we spoke to Ryan Finity last week, he was saying how important it was that they got back to having some home games after so long on the road. Yeah. Owen, do you think the Stars bubble might have burst a little bit?
Possibly. You know, they had such a hot start, they're never going to be able to maintain that, and this is probably just a bit of regression, and we'll find out a bit more about them. But I've got to say, I was really impressed with what I've seen of Braehead so far this season. They seem to play, you know, a lot more of a gritty, competitive kind of hockey than they did last season. And they came to the NIC, and it wasn't the type of performance that we see from some Scottish teams where they almost sit back, look for the opportunities and go with the odd man breaks. They actually try to get the zone, to play hockey, and I think as the season goes on, they'll get better at that as they learn the systems. I actually think Braehead now will be on the up and up for the most part, and they're probably going to be the team north of the border, as we always expect them to be.
Okay. Well, moving on to Sunday's games, Panthers had another Challenge Cup game away at the Hull Arena, the most versatile arena in the country, apparently. We took the camera up there.
Versatile venue, it says.
Versatile venue.
Yeah, versatile venue.
There you go. We took the camera up to Hull, and we got some reaction from some of the Hull fans and officials after the game. Scooby, good game tonight.
Yeah, it was alright. It was a close game. I just thought that Nottingham had another gear to step up every time we started playing well. They just moved another gear up and dominated the game in that way.
I think it's a case, and I think from this season, from what I've been reading about the Stingrays, it seems to be very, very good up front, but probably not so good in the back line, and that's why you're conceding quite a few goals.
Yeah, plus the fact, there was already Jeff Smith down tonight as well, which doesn't help. We're already an import down as well, so it's 2 imports down tonight. And we had 2 young British kids on. Jamie Chilcott, who's getting some really good at regular ice time. He's going to be probably the next, like you've got Stevie Lee. He's about as good as Stevie Lee was at his age. And young Scott Robson, he's playing as well, getting some decent ice time. He's also getting registered in one of the ENL teams as well, so he's getting regular ice time. So for that, we're going all right. But like I say, you can see some of the times that the away players coming into our zone are a bit too strong for us at the minute.
It seems that you tend to be losing games by the odd goalie, a couple of goals. Obviously, you've had a few problems with suspensions recently.
Apparently.
But do you think it will come together in the end? Because you do look a very useful outfit on the times I've seen you this season. Yeah,
you can see the 2 Frenchies that we've got, Lawson and Doucet. I mean, you can see they're going to come to one game and destroy your team together. You can sometimes you can see that in a team. You can see your partnership coming in, and all of a sudden, bang, they'll score, and bang, and when they get 1 goal between them, they're going to get about 3 or 4 goals. But it's just getting that game and getting a little bit more consistency amongst the forwards. Just instead of leaving it to Tendley, which is what we have been doing for the last 3 seasons. I mean, Tendler's still rattling goals in. Matty Davis is still assisting him. We still haven't got that secondary scoring on a regular basis, which is what we need to win these games.
Entertaining game tonight.
Really entertaining game, and the Stingrays shouldn't be worried by that. They're only playing with 9 imports tonight. No Smith at the back. There's still a Campbell space hole for them to fill. And the fact that they kept coming back, they went 3-2 behind, back to 3-3, 4-3, back to 4-4, and they just kept fighting back. And I thought that for what some fans were calling a nothing game, they really gave it everything tonight.
I think Panthers probably did still have that little too much. Hull kept coming back, and then Panthers had come back, and it was always seemed there was that extra gear. And I think from my own personal point of view, it seems that Hull looked very, very strong up front, but probably a little weak at the back. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I said in the Elite League podcast at the start of the year, one in a season preview for the Rays, that the team looks as though it's got plenty of goals in it. And I said if everything goes well, they'll score loads of goals and they'll blow the Gardner teams away. Well, the Gardner games they've won, they did blow Braehead away, and they did pretty much blow Fife away in the first period last night. But I said if everything goes wrong, they'll be weak at the back and they won't be able to protect bounds. And we've seen that tonight with a couple of players wide open in front and too much room to shoot on the power play. Again, the Stingrays' penalty kill this year isn't what it should be. So we are seeing the best and worst of the Stingrays as the season's started. But they're still only really 2 points behind where they should be. If they'd beaten Edinburgh at home, they lost it in the last couple of minutes, they'd be exactly where we thought they'd be all along. So there isn't any reason to panic here at the moment, even though the league table doesn't look great.
Quick word on Bounds, because I must admit, every time I see him, he just seems to get better. He seems to be more confident, commanding his crease more, commanding his defence more, and I think the defence do seem to have confidence in him.
Yeah, and they should, because he's getting better. There's been a couple of goals this season when, and he'll admit this, I really should have stopped that one. But they've just been the odd goal every now and again. Last night in Fife, he was superb. It's the best I've seen him, in a year and a half now. It's his rebound control that was so good last night. There were a lot of big slap shots coming in last night, through a crowd, through traffic, some redirects. Nothing got away from him. It was tight to his body, or it was deflected well away to the corner. There weren't the big ones bouncing off his chest into the slot and into other dangerous areas. And we saw that again tonight. There wasn't a lot of scrambles in front of Bounds' goal. He's neat and tidy, and that gives his defence confidence, because they know they can push out and block shots, because they don't need to be around the crease to pick up the pieces.
Think that Hull can push on and really get something out of this season?
I really think they can. I've not seen anything from Braehead, or to be honest, even Dundee, that says they are that much better than Hull are. Hull should be able to beat Dundee next Saturday here. Whether they will or not, we'll have to wait and see. But if Dundee were the runaway team, they came the Stingrays last week and lost, and they won by a goal. And the Stingrays went up there last week and lost by a goal. They're tight games, and on another day, the Stingrays can pinch those. If they get a full 11 imports, they might well pinch those. You get the feeling that Dundee's bubble might be starting to burst a little bit, and teams are starting to find out, how they can play. Teams are getting at them. And I just think that the Stingrays, we've beaten Braehead when we've played them. We know we can probably beat Edinburgh. We've already beaten Fife. There's nothing really in this conference for the Stingrays to fear. The Challenge Cup, we can write that off. It's always going to be a long shot for the Stingrays, given the division that they're in. But given that the way the conference system is set up, there should be enough home wins for the Stingrays to be really competitive.
So the views of Jonathan Fearnley and Paul Carruthers there. We were both in Hull on Sunday night. I really enjoyed it, actually, and again, another good game.
You say that after about every game. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this. We lost 14-0, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, but we haven't lost 14-0, have we? I probably wouldn't enjoy that as much.
Braehead fans would. They look everything.
Moving on. So,
it was a pretty good game. Made a bit more interesting, I think, by the fact that we gave Dan Green a start.
But he did all right. He came in. It's going to be a confidence boost. I think we need Green to be fresh at the minute, and he needs to get the odd start where we can, because obviously they've got the Continental Cup coming up, 3 games in 3 days. I believe Craig Kowalski's wife is pregnant, so he may be missing for a short while at some time during the season. Important that Green stays fresh.
Important that Green stays fresh, and equally as important that Craig Kowalski stays fresh. That would have been, in many ways, a silly game to play him in. It's a risk that you just don't have to take. Nottingham, top of the group, don't have to worry about it. We know they can switch into the gears and play hockey, looking ahead to the rest of the season and the Continental Cup. So don't risk him, and use your full bench, and that's everything that they did.
It is a marathon, not a sprint, for all the cliche spotters out there. But
Ding.
yeah, all right. We've been called arrogant for doing it, but at the end of the day,
Who was that?
By one person.
Yeah.
Mentioning
you've got to
mentioning no names, but I live with her.
Yeah, but hang on a second,
you've got to play for the whole season.
Yeah, and we're 2 weeks into the NHL season, and backups are getting games left, right, and centre.
Exactly.
That's how you do it. You sign a squad. What's the point of signing a backup if he's never going to play?
Yeah.
He's there. Use him. Simple.
Yeah. Because what happens when you can get injured. You don't want to keep and get injured, get sick.
It's no arrogance. It's no disrespect. If Nottingham were going up to Sheffield last Sunday, I think Green would have started then as well, because essentially the scenario is exactly the same.
He needs the rest.
It's about protecting Craig Kowalski. Simple as that.
Yeah, I have to agree.
I think a word for Hull though, because they made a real fight of it, and they never let us get away with the game at all.
They're going to look at it and think, well, we've got a bit, we've got a chance here. Okay, the 2 imports down. But lift me mic up. Is that why you're kicking me?
No, I'm kicking you because you're on me wire.
Get him.
You're on his
down a bit then. Where was I?
Hull.
Yeah, Hull. Yeah, but and I think it's quite good that we ended up winning, even because if we'd lost, a lot of the people had been on Dan's back undeservedly. But I thought that you know, when we went forward, when we put the pressure on, they couldn't handle us. You know, and you look at a lot of the goals, they came from us circling the puck about, moving about, having the time to pass it about. I mean, they gave us a really good game, but I thought we'd got too much for them, whoever had been in goal. Well, not whoever. Yeah, if you'd have been in, they'd have probably won, but yeah.
I'm no netminder. I'm no forward either, really.
Or
Anyway,
defenseman.
I think we'll leave that one there. We'll move on to Sunday's games. We have got a new Sheffield Steelers correspondent, Scott Antcliffe. He was at Steelers versus the Devils. Here's his report.
Just got back from the Steelers game. 6-3 win for the Steelers against the Cardiff Devils, and a great performance. New guy, Rob Sirianni, on his debut. What more can you ask for? Hat-trick on his debut. He's been a sniper, what the Steelers have missed this season. So really glad that he's come in. He got a standing ovation from the fans, and well-deserved man of the match as well. Steelers went down after just 24 seconds. Mike Faulkner got the opening goal. Obviously a real threat. Mike Faulkner, cracking player. Steelers responded, equalised in the 4th minute on the power play. Good power play tonight. We went 3 for 4 for the first 4 power plays, and then 3 for 7 overall, which is not too bad considering, you know, it's not been too great recently. After we equalised, to be fair, it was all Steelers. You know, no way for Devils to get back into the game. A lot of indiscipline on the Devils' part tonight, which was a shame really, because, you know, they didn't really get a chance to show what they can do really. Other impressive plays tonight, Tim Spencer, 1+2. You know, and he took a slap shot to the head too and played again 3 shifts later. The guy's a warrior. Chad Langlay's as well, been really impressive since he's come back from injury. So overall, great win, great team performance, and hopefully they'll take the momentum going into this weekend against Fife and Belfast.
Steelers Devils then. Sirianni coming in, hat-trick first game. That's not a bad start, is it?
Small sample size, you know, you got to give the guy time to see what he's really like. He may be one of these that goes in and out, gives you a great week, and then gives you a quiet week. But, you know, the Steelers needed something. The league needs a competitive Sheffield. As much as Panthers fans won't want to hear that, that's my feeling. And, you know, at least they've found somebody that's brought a bit of spark back to that arena, because you know what it can be like in there.
Quiet, usually.
I have to agree with Owen, though, to be fair. For the league, and, you know, the Steelers need to be there and thereabouts. They need to be challenging, because otherwise, you know, you're just missing...
challenging just under.
Yeah, but you're missing that spark, aren't you?
The league in general really needs to be competitive.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
The great story about Dundee has been the fact that, you know, suddenly somebody different was winning games. And, you know, ideally Cardiff would have been up there this season. They've not started well. We'll talk about that, I know. You know, it needs Panthers being competitive, of course, but it needs Sheffield, it needs Belfast, it needs a bit of unpredictability about it sometimes, the Elite League.
Okay. I just like to see what it was like. Just try it out once.
What's that?
Sheffield not challenging.
But you know what's going to happen though? If Sheffield aren't challenging and they're playing poorly, everybody's going to be, well, that's because Sheffield aren't there. They're not challenging. It won't be because, you know, a team like Dundee...
Somebody else is better.
Somebody else is better. It will be because we wasn't performing. We wasn't at our best. So you want everybody, you know, fighting for points.
That really does irritate me. The idea that you don't beat them, they lose to you. You don't beat them because you're better. They were worse. But we don't need another rant on this show. So
exactly.
We'll move on. What else have we got?
Well, a bit of a shootout at the Sky Dome. Blaze 4, Giants 7. But of course, Blaze were 2-0 and 3-1 up in that game. And by the sounds of it, threw it away a bit by having a very, very poor third period.
Well, you've got to play for 60 minutes, haven't you? You know, Sheffield have talked about it, and especially against a side like the Giants, who have got goals in them this season, you've got to play for 60 minutes, and it sounds like they had a very good 40-minute period, 2 periods, and for the third period they just didn't turn up. And like I say, the Giants are going to punish you this season. They're a good side. You know, they've got depth. They've got good forwards. They've got a decent, strong defence.
Very well coached now as well.
Exactly.
Very well coached.
Exactly.
Paul does his homework for sure. So.
Yeah.
Well, I think as well they went 2-0 down very early on after about 4 minutes, and I think Paul Ady called a timeout pretty much straight away and settled his team down, and then they went and scored probably 90 seconds after that. So I think good coaching. He knows what he's doing, does Paul Ady.
I mean, I've never met the bloke, but he looks like he has that just calming influence, and you know, he's not going to panic. He realises when the time is to pull a time out, and you know, maybe after Doug, that's what the Giants needed. They needed somebody different. They needed a coach with different methods and a different personality. So, and it's certainly working for them so far.
Caps 2, Clan 3, so a good 4-point weekend for the Clan. Caps seem to battle this weekend. You know, are they improving, flashing the pan? They seem to be gelling a bit and scoring a few more goals at least, and not on the evidence of Sunday's game, not conceding as many as well.
Again, I think last season it kind of took them a bit of time, didn't it, to get in, and then they had the two fantastic results on the road in Sheffield and in Nottingham. It's always going to take them a bit more time with the nature of the team and the budgets and everything else. But as we were just saying about competitiveness at the top of the table, you need it in both conferences, and you need it there as well. You know, give them time. They'll start picking up the wins, and no doubt they'll pick up one or two scalps as well, just like they did last season.
They need the win as well, don't they? They need
that one win. I think that one win will be a catalyst.
You know, it's like when you get stuck in a rut, don't you? You'll do anything for that one win, and then you can progress from there. So
we thought they were going to get it in Cardiff.
Well,
Saturday
like
night, after all that we'd been saying, last week about where's that win going to come from, and all of a sudden they're winning in Cardiff. But again, a bad third period. Last 10 minutes, wasn't it? I think more than actually the third period. But yeah, troubled times ahead. Final
game to look at: Stars 2, Fife 1. Challenge Cup game again. A problem with Fife not scoring, but also Billy Bagran, the Stars forward, has been banned for 4 games for cross-checking. Supplemental review on that one, and was judged to be enough to get a 4-game ban. So the bans are really being thrown out this year, but that's probably a good thing that they're stamping down on discipline.
It is, and I know we'll talk about bans later, obviously, with Derek Campbell, but there's still a flaw, and I don't want to rival your disciplinary rant, obviously. There's still a big flaw in this system, a lot of this system, and it's the fact that teams decide, for the most part, what they want reviewed and when. And they, as far as I'm aware, officials don't get a game tape to look at and go through and list incidents they want to look at, which is how it's done in the NHL. There are resource issues there as much as anything. But you have the scenarios where if Nottingham play Sheffield and there's an incident with a Sheffield player, and then Sheffield play Belfast the next night, are Nottingham going to get that reviewed? Probably not, because it damages there. And until you can get out of that system, there's a fundamental flaw with how the discipline works. That said, I'm glad they're handing out the big bans, and as I say, we'll talk about that in a minute, I know.
Yeah, so as Owen lovely links in there, our hot topic, well, one of our hot topics this week is the ban that Derek Campbell received last week for an incident in a game against the Dundee Stars. As we was in Hull on Sunday, again, we had the camera and we got some opinions from there.
I mean, the Derek Campbell incident, obviously I was commentating at the time, and I didn't pick up straight away that it was him. I just saw someone in a black t-shirt go flying across off the ice and said, oh my God, there's been an incident with a fan, this is horrible. Because I thought that's one of the worst things that can happen, is a fan attacking someone. And it was only when they all emerged from the pile that I realised it was Campbell, and it was worse, knowing what he must have done to sneak around the back like he did in a premeditated attack. You hope you never have to commentate on something like this. You're always aware that anything can happen at any time, and it was almost surreal. That seems like a too strange a word to use, but I don't think I'll ever see anything like that again, and I hope I never do. But it was just completely uncalled for. And I know there've been people talking about the suspensions, but I think, to be honest, it seemed about right. When you see everything listed, like Hansen listed, he said he's got 15 games for this, 12 for this, 10 for this, 12 for this. Yeah, that seems fair for all those incidents. There's no justification, no excuse. He went far too far.
I think it's the ban changing it to the season because he's got no team is fair. That's fair on the Stingrays, I think. So they can bring someone else in, I think, and obviously they don't get punished for Campbell's stupidity.
What about the actual ban itself? Do you feel it was fair, or do you think it's quite excessive?
I say it's excessive, but fair in some ways, because it sends out a message that you can't do that, and that it should deter other people from doing it, but it's probably a little bit too long for me. I think probably 25 games maybe would have been fair, given everything that was said that happened when they released what the ban was, the breakdown. I think 25 games would have been about right.
You're going on about the Derek Campbell ban. Was it fair? It's a horrendous 47-game ban for something that I was stood over there, so I didn't actually see what's going on there. I mean, you can't take things off the ice. It's simple as that, because of the other implications. Other players were coming off the ice. The other team's players were coming off the ice. It could have got into the crowd, and it could have got nasty. That's probably where the big, massive ban's coming from. Where he's got the 12, the 15 for this, it's just, isn't it? Doesn't it just work out that he's out for the full season? Has he made them numbers up to get him out for the full season? Who knows? But was it a fair ban? I don't know till I actually see exactly what happened. Not being Alex Ferguson or Arsene Wenger type thing, I didn't see it. I honestly didn't see it, because it stood in the corner, I'm stood down there. But if the referee saw it and he said he was eye gouging, you're going to tell the referees thing. But the other stuff where he's gone off the ice, you just can't do that. I mean, fair play to Derek Campbell. He's owned up and he said sorry. A lot of other players would have just gone on the next flight home and gone. I know Derek still lives in England and all that, but a lot of other players would have just buried their head, gone straight home. That's it, you wouldn't see him. Fair enough, he's man enough to admit that he was wrong. Was it a selfish act? Depends whether we're going to get 47-game ban for a full season for one import. If we're going to be playing one import down all season, that's going to kill us. A team of our budget, we're not going to get any better imports in than we've got in a minute. To replace him, I know what goes on with the amount of money that you've got to spend for ITC cards. You've got another flight coming in, you've got more accommodation and all this, because I know the accommodation that the lads have got, and I'm just thinking that's going to hurt us more than any ban at the moment. I think it was Sims he put on Twitter, what's a fair ban? To be honest, what's a fair ban for this? And I'll be brutally honest, what's the longest ban that's gone in this season for any player? Is it 8 games? Is it 10 games? That should be what we should be banned for one player's actions. He's banned for 47 games. We shouldn't have to suffer for 47 games, because all that's going to do is make an imbalance in games against yourself, where your fans are going to go, we're going to turn up here, we're going to trouncel Stingrays, your gates are going to go down, Sheffield's gates are going to go down, Belfast's gates are going to go down, because at the end of the day you're going to have a ridiculous scenario like you did the other year with Edinburgh. They're going to turn up and teams are going to know they're going to beat these teams, and it's going to have a detrimental effect on all teams' finances, if you look at it that way. Like I've said, give us a 10-game ban to bring another import in, can't have another import in for 10 games. I think that's fair, and that's me from being a Hull Stingrays fan. At the end of the day, 10 games, if we get that, it's going to take us at least 3 weeks to find a player and bring him in. So that's fair to me, 10 games.
So some views of the Hull contingent there. I have to say, I agree with Sam with what he said there, that he felt a 25-game ban would probably have been enough. And I think it would. I think that was enough. I think 47 games, for me, was a bit excessive.
Well, do you not think, though, when you see how it was broken down, that you can partly see why it was 47 games?
I must admit, I like the way, and I must pay immense credit to Murray Hansen here for the way that he displayed it and broke it down in so many games. And I think there needs to be more openness like that within the disciplinary system, and he's certainly showing that. However, I still think for the overall incident, I think 47 games was still a bit on the excessive side.
Doesn't the breakdown of the offence, as transparent and good as that is, suddenly seem a bit too close to how many games Hull have got left this season? Doesn't it? It seems very coincidental that there's that number, and they've got that more or less that number of games left.
Perhaps, not knowing the exact rules and regs of the Elite League, there are precedents where other leagues where they've just said, right, you're banned for the season. And it's interesting to see the clarification where they've said Campbell is banned for this number of games or till the start of next season, whichever comes first.
And
so from that point of view, I take your
Mm.
point what you're saying, but once you've broken it down, and when you look at the breakdown, you can't, at least I couldn't really argue with any of those individual ones.
I agree.
So, I think it's probably a coincidence thing more than anything. The question still remains, I think, unless I missed it, is how many games are Hull going to be without an import skater for?
And I think that's where the confusion lies, because talking to the guys there, they don't know how long they're going to be without an import. And I think Scooby was saying that it's going to take at least 3 weeks to get another import in. So there you're looking at another 6 games on top of the 3 he's already been banned.
The thing about, as well, not just about the 3 weeks, was the money. You've got to get flights, you've got to get accommodation, you've got to find a person. First of all, it's additional funds on top of missing that player for however many weeks it's going to be.
But they're saving the money that they were paying Campbell.
But Campbell lives in the UK, so no flights required, probably no accommodation.
I'm not saying it's the same, I'm just saying that they're saving there.
Yeah, it's true.
But it's going to be interesting to see what the league do in terms of how they penalise Hull in terms of the import spot and not just the player. Because I think this is where, unless they're very clear with the reasoning, and I've called for, I think give him a percentage and say you sit a percentage, and that's kind of the precedent you lay down. But again, the league have to be careful though, because they can't make one decision now and then make a different call down the line.
No, that's because in that situation, if anything, a serious incident happens again, they've got to act the same like they have in this in this situation. And like Owen just says, if it is a percentage, 20% of the overall offence, the team has to be punished. Then everybody knows, doesn't it? If it's a 16 game, 20% handed down to the team. They've obviously made a statement with the.
But they've got to continue making the statement.
There's no point making that statement if it's not then followed up in future incidents. And I think that's where maybe in the past we've let ourselves down as a league. But I think now is the perfect opportunity to make that change and actually roll this sort of management of discipline forward, really.
Yeah, I mean there does appear to be a lot more bans. Is it something in the air? Because I don't remember this many bans being at the start of the season before, and such close, and a spread of teams as well. It's not like it's one team committing all the offences. It's all different teams.
I mean, could you look at it in the fact that the league's got more competitive, as we've mentioned?
That's possibly.
Players want to, and coaches and organisations want to win games. And with that comes adrenaline.
Are they sending people out to headbutt somebody? Are they sending somebody out to go and fight in the corridors?
Well, I'd like to think not.
I'm coming across really grumpy, aren't I?
I'd like to think not, but I just think it could be a fact that everybody's more competitive and they want to win games more, and there's better players in there, and that's what they're used to. So.
Well, our second hot topic of the week is, of course, all the goings-on in Cardiff. We had Phil Hill gassed yesterday. Gerard Adams announced as being retired today. We got Sean Phillips, our Cardiff correspondent, to give his opinion on the Phil Hill gassing.
Phil Hill decision, that's not a Gerard Adams decision at all, or a Neil Francis decision. We've always known that Neil rates Phil Hill very highly. They played together when they grew up. He knows what Phil Hill's like to play with and against. Obviously, he played for Sheffield, so that's not a coaching move, in my opinion. Again, we've got 4 games this week, I think, coming up. So we've got 3 games: Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. 1 against Belfast and 2 against Coventry, which are going to be some tough games for us after a tough start. So to deplete our lineup even more seems like a silly decision, regardless of whether Phil was just sitting on the bench not playing, but he was there if somebody got injured. So I can't see that as a coaching decision, but I think that's come from further higher. There's also rumours of some more bad news going to come around later this evening, so you guys should know about that. Probably as you record the show, so if you do, I'm sorry that I can't comment on that, but we're going through some tough times here in Cardiff.
So Sean's opinion there, I think what's happened in Cardiff in the past few weeks, I think the only way it can be described is just a complete and utter mess.
It's baffling, like honestly baffling. And this decision, you know, why get rid of an established British player? You know, they're not out there readily available, like they're just not. So why get rid of him? You get rid of him, you make your competition stronger as well, because he's going to go to a Nottingham or a Sheffield or a Belfast. He's going to go somewhere, so you make your competition stronger. I mean, that it looks like we need to do something. What can we do? And this is the decision they've made, and I don't think it makes much sense. And you know, I would love to know who drove the decision for Gerard Adams to retire and go behind the bench full time. I'd love to know whether that was his idea or whether that's something that's maybe been taken to him. But it just seems like you need to let the guy coach. Let the guy coach.
Yeah. Are the two things connected though? Are they freeing up money to bring somebody else in?
Well, that's,
do you think?
That's something we can only speculate on at this time.
Oh,
so,
yeah. That's a risk, though, isn't it? Really,
oh, yeah.
with the two incidents, you know, as Owen says, to get rid of an import is something, but to get rid of, you know, one of the top British forwards over the last 5, 8, 10 years it's unheard of in a way. You know, that's like us getting rid of David Clark or
Danny Myers.
And look, like if it comes down to the finance, if it comes down to a financial thing, and that's the reason they got to free up funds for an import, a high-end import, or whatever it is, then you have to go back to the management side of things and say, well, why have you given that guy a contract that puts you in this kind of a hole?
Exactly,
You know, why have you managed to budget in that way? Because again, it just kind of seems like he's a British player and he's a good British player. And you've seen all the tweets from other British players saying this doesn't make any sense, and I think that's the overriding view from Devils fans as well. This doesn't make any sense.
I think I agree with the tweet from Jason Hewitt yesterday, where he said, where he said, you know, another team has become stronger just by him leaving, and you're right, it just doesn't make sense. And then of course Gerard Adams now becoming the head coach, which is probably something that did need to happen. He can coach from the bench, but how much interference is going on?
Well, I think if you look at the statement, the fact that, you know, Neil Francis is now going to take sort of a back seat. I'm going to be sitting in the stands, you know, watching, which a lot of teams do already. Well, I'm not really sure that's how it works to a certain degree. And then Brent Pope is obviously going to be working with Adams on a regular basis. It's very fishy. There's muddy water there.
It seems a bit of a halfway house to me. If you're not happy with how your team's playing, you think you've recruited a good team, and I'm not sure exactly how recruitment works in Cardiff, but if you think you've got the good players and they're being coached badly, then sack your coach. These seem like halfway measures, short of getting rid of Gerard Adams. I don't think he should go. I think he should be left to get on with the job, because I think he's shown over the last few years, and I think he's earned the time. Now, you know, I've not had to watch Cardiff week in, week out. I'm sure the Devils fans will disagree, but I just think he needs to be left to do the job.
And the thing is as well, this being his testimonial year as well, if they sacked him, that terrible PR.
Sean mentioned it, I think, in last week's, didn't he? He said that that's just unthinkable in Cardiff for them to do that. And I agree with what Owen's saying. You know, if you're not happy, you know, and let's say from Paul Reagan's point of view, you make the call. You know, that's why he is there, and you can't just, you know, go, well, we'll push you behind the bench, we'll get rid of a player. You've got to make the call.
And you know what, you can't have sentiment either. If you're not happy, you can't go, well, it's testimonial year, we're going to hang on and give him a chance. You make the call, you get rid, and then you have the class to go back and say, look, we want to recognise the service, we're going to do this for you anyway. And that would be the right thing to do. It just seems so strange, and I would love to know how the players that are still in that dressing room feel about it, because they're going to be the coach's players. They're not going to have allegiance to anybody else. They'll have allegiance to the coach. And how secure is the coach's job? Like we don't know everything that's happening.
But it's like when we were talking about it last week, you know, and I said it's almost like they don't want to sack Adams. They want to force him to resign. You know, and you got to wonder why they want to do that. Is it cheaper for them? Perhaps.
Well, you would maybe
think
so.
You know, it doesn't make any sense.
No,
you know, it's
it
is just like Owen said. It's a halfway measure where you want it's all or nothing. Should be really.
Well, owners, you know, they're in that position through money, through through the right means. But if you're in that position, you have to live and die by your result, by your decision. Sorry, and not many owners don't have a backbone. So I'm not saying that Paul Rager doesn't have a backbone at all, but you're in that to make these tough decisions, and you've got to, for the sake of the club. If you don't honestly think that he is the right man, you have to make that call. But I think the most interesting thing is where Phil Hill is going to end up. I mean, I'm very surprised that it's not been announced already, because
I don't think they're always announced the night after we film.
Yeah.
You know that.
But you would have thought there would be several coaches on his.
That's probably the thing. There's probably so much negotiation going on. Trying to attract him. It's probably going to be a day or two.
I mean,
while he chooses. At the end of the day, he's got to choose the right decision for him.
Yeah. I'm not sure which club is the right choice for him, if I'm honest.
You can't.
Only Phil Hill knows that.
But
and who's to say he's going to stay in the elite league? Guildford.
Yeah.
He's going to be an option.
Swindon's been mentioned as well.
Yeah, he could commute to Swindon
quite easily.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting to see.
Okay. Well, I'm sure this will run, and I'm sure we'll probably be talking about it in future weeks. We're going to have a look ahead now to this week's Continental Cup at the NIC. First of all, I think it's a huge event and a really, really big coup for the Panthers to get such an event at the arena.
Absolutely, and I hope ticket sales pick up a little bit by the weekend, because we see Coventry, Sheffield, we see the teams so often. This is something completely different, and I hope people turn out and see it. And Panthers do have every chance of going through as well. So,
I think for those people, in sport and in ice hockey that can't make it to games, abroad, when usually these competitions take place. You can't really moan, can you? Because it's on your doorstep near enough, and ticket prices aren't that.
They're very good.
Very
I think for cheapest ticket now, £43 for 6 games of hockey.
Yeah, you can't complain really, and I think it would be great to see the Panthers and see how they shape up and play against some European sides. And I think Owen will obviously know more than me, but if they have got a realistic chance of going through, that's fantastic, and it would be great to see that in our own barns.
Well, let's have a look at some of the games. I mean, on Friday night they take on Viking Sport from Estonia, who were one of the qualifiers into this competition.
I think they're the dark horses.
Yeah.
I think if we're looking at anybody who could stop us going through, it's going to be them.
Sorry, the England game is on. England have just scored. So
I thought people liked my comment.
Well, they do. They're cheering at home right now.
Yeah. No, they're not.
You carry on. I'm just going to go and see who scored.
Yeah. You keep talking, Jono.
It's interesting that you pick Tallinn, because Riga are an interesting one. Riga Juniors are the farm team to the KHL side.
Yeah.
So we've got no idea. Trust me, I'm looking. What squad they're going to bring? They could bring top young players. They could bring anybody at all. I think the Hague are probably the team to write off. No disrespect
I think we said something similar at the weekend.
You look through it. I've been through the squad. It's a lot of Dutch internationals. I think one Canadian, one Czech. That's it. I think Panthers, and I think every team in it should beat them. From the other three, Tallinn maybe the dark horses, but they didn't have to beat a lot to get here. And then, like I say, Riga are, as well as having very complicated names, they could bring anybody.
Looking forward to Coventry, Owen.
Can't wait, Johnny.
I personally think Riga are going to be the team to beat. I think that one has been saved till the Sunday on purpose, because I think that may be the decider. That'll be the showdown to see who goes through.
From the Panthers' point of view, though, this is something that we've obviously been aiming for a few years now, and I think possibly looking at recruitment over the summer, this was something that was looked at as well.
There's a lot of players. We bought a lot of players with European experience.
I think this is something. I think we might see a different Panthers side at the weekend due to the opposition and how they play, and and maybe some of the players that we've got now are used to playing against that type of opposition. And I think it'll be interesting to see that, the difference. And I think, Kowalski's said it on the website, how he's looking forward to seeing how they shape up against European opposition. So I think it's exciting.
I think how it's refereed will be interesting and will be very important, because we know that when Great Britain go away, they have issues with how the games are called.
Yeah.
Different to the Elite League, it is less physical. And if Panthers want to play a hard check physical game, it's about where that line's going to be drawn.
True.
So I think that might be important. And like you said, Jono, I think it's going to come down to that final game, Panthers against Riga. And maybe that will have given Nottingham enough time to adjust to the hockey and to the officiating as well. And maybe that gives them the edge. But like I say, that Riga roster, I think, is so unpredictable that I think they're probably the team to watch.
And I think as well, another thing they've got to get used to is a two-referee system, which, single referee in the Elite League, all those little crafty plays that happen behind the play.
There's plenty of people in Scotland who say it's a no-referee system, so we're not getting into that one again either.
But yeah, I think that's something that they'll have to get used to, because it's not something that we have in this country. So
but maybe we don't have that in our country, but the people that have played abroad in the past will be used to that as well. So as a club and as fans, we're not used to that. So it'll be interesting from a fan point of view to see that as well. So it's got the markings of a great weekend, for hockey in this city. So
very quickly, just to end this little segment, where do you think this could lead? Having a prestigious tournament like this, hosted at the NIC, by all likelihood, all attendance records for this stage of the Continental Cup are going to be broken this weekend. So what could this lead to? What will the IIHF be looking for?
I think it depends on how closely they're looking at it in the first place, to be honest. I don't know if the Continental Cup is that prestigious from a IIHF point of view. I think it's going to be looked at because it's in a new setting, and it's in the UK and in Nottingham. But I think first they've got to hope that the IIHF look at it. It can certainly do an awful lot in terms of if this country wants to host groups going forward. We're talking Great Britain World Championships, things like that. But then you have issues with the arena and everything else, because I think this would have to be the venue where it's held. So hopefully the venue can run it well, run it properly. If Panthers can get through, that will help so much more, because then people will actually look at what happened here in a lot more detail. But we'll find that out on Sunday.
Guys?
Yeah, I think that's right. But that it's as much about how it's staged rather than the event itself. And and if we do go through, and if we get to the next round, people are going to think, hang on, they do play ice hockey in Britain. The rumours are true, because a lot of the time it's ice hockey, Britain, really, and it will go a long way to raising the profile, and that's good. But I think as well that we can't let it. I'm not entirely sure whether it's a wonderful opportunity or a distraction. This is not. So this really shouldn't. Well, I'll ask you the question: should this be the focus of the season, or is winning, domestic trophies where we should be aiming our priorities?
Yeah.
I think Nottingham have shown over the last few years that you can fight on all fronts and you can be successful. And you're adding the Continental Cup in it, yes, but what is that adding to you? Maybe only 3 extra games, maybe 6 extra games and a bit more travel. And you have to have the faith in your squad that you can compete with that. And if Nottingham wants to stretch themselves and the league wants to stretch themselves, teams need to do this.
Yeah.
And my biggest complaint always with Elite League and British ice hockey is that they never try to grow the game. Whether that be the way they deal with the media, whether that be the way they appeal to new fans, whether that be the way the disciplines run, whatever. They never think about growing the game. And this is something that will grow the game.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I have to agree, and I think I believe we spoke about it before, is to me, Panthers are not an organisation with people there, Neil Black, Gary Moran, Corey Nielsen, that want to stand still.
No.
Yeah.
And you can win. Yes, of course. I would say in most sports, the domestic is what you want to win. We want to obviously retain the elite league, but to do that every year, you've got to grow, like Owen says, and you've got to move and you've got to progress. And this is a fantastic opportunity to do that. And it's a fantastic opportunity to put British ice hockey on the map, and also Nottingham Panthers on the map, but also Nottingham as a city as well. So, I think that's the main aim of it.
Okay. We'll quickly look ahead to some of the domestic games that are taking place over the weekend. So Thursday, Devils against the Giants. I think that's just become an absolutely massive game for the Cardiff Devils.
They've not helped themselves, have they? By removing 2 players from the roster
No,
with
true.
immediate effect.
Well, you'd hope somebody might come in. I don't know.
In some ways, it's less important than it was in terms of, if Gerald Adams is still the player coach and they're thinking about making a change, that game is very important. But now they've made a change, you can't then turn around and make another change after one game. So I think to some respect the pressure's off him a little bit, but I think it's difficult to see past the Giants on Thursday.
I'd have to agree, to be fair. I think with the form that the Giants showed from the previous weekend, they're going to go in there full of confidence.
Yeah.
They're going to know that Cardiff's going to, and that as well, the Cardiff fans are going to be nervous. So if the Giants can get an early goal, silence the crowd, it could be theirs for the taking, really.
Yeah.
Okay. So looking ahead to Saturday, Hull against Dundee.
Again.
That's going to be an interesting one, especially after. I hope it's a calmer game after the last one a couple of weeks ago.
Could it be any more exciting, for want of a better word?
Well, the thing is, Stars, they've hit a bit of a rocky bit of form. Hull won a game last week. They put on a good display against us. Probably got a little bit of confidence going into that game. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Hull come away with the 2 points from that one.
I think it could go one of either ways, really. I think it's flip a coin, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
I think it's an important game for the Stars.
Yeah.
Because they've gone through this rocky period of form. They want to put a marker down. And it's against Hull, and it's in their own conference. So they're going to be playing them a lot of times. I think it's almost. I don't really want to say, but it could be season defining for both teams. It's a bit early. But it could set either of them off, win or lose, in a very different direction.
I think Clan v Caps. I can't bet against Bray Clan at home against the Capitals. Caps have been coming back into it the past weekend, but I still think Bray have got far too much for Edinburgh, especially at Braid Arena.
They've turned with that 4-point weekend. They've turned a bit of a corner, haven't they? And like Owen talked about earlier, I think the way they're playing and the way the Affinities set them up, and the importance that Finner said about home, I think they're going to go for that, and they'll get a win there, to be honest.
Fife against Steelers, that could be an interesting one. Fife, down on the luck a bit, not scoring many goals. Steelers, well, probably playing about 500 hockey at the minute. I wouldn't like to call that one.
Sheffield split weekends, don't they? And I know we're going to come on to the Sunday game. I don't understand why they're doing the split weekend in terms of one game in Scotland, one game in Sheffield. I assume it's to do with ice time. I don't think that can be helping them at all, by the way. No. But, I think maybe Sheffield, we talked about Braille having turned the corner, maybe now Sheffield with a bit more of a spark up front, maybe they'll turn the corner as well. But, going to Scotland is always tricky for any team.
Yeah. And I think the importance of the result of that Saturday game makes the Sunday game what was already a big game, potentially a massive game. So it'll be interesting.
Well, let's look at that Sunday game. Steelers against Giants at Sheffield Arena. I think Giants will win that. I think Giants are a better team than Steelers this year so far. On the ice, on paper, Sheffield are much, much better. But Giants are proven with results. They're top of the Elite League. They are the better side at the minute.
You can't argue with that. And Sheffield, with the injuries, with the suspension, I think Adie's does his homework, like I said earlier, and I think he'll know how to play Sheffield at home. And I think they go into that one as favourites, certainly. But as you just said, if Sheffield can get the win in Fife and then go back to Sheffield, suddenly the whole mood there changes.
Yeah.
Suddenly there'll be 2-game win streak. They're feeling much better about themselves. Giants at home, bring it on. The mentality changes. Their whole weekend depends massively on that first game.
It's the defence, isn't it, though, for the Steelers, especially with Baldwin.
Baldwin gone, Myers injured, Cohen's injured. So they've got three fit.
Well, we've
defencemen.
talked about the Giants offensively and Peacock in particular. That's going to be interesting to see how they face each other, the forwards against the defence.
I think the Giants could take advantage.
Well, it's a perfect opportunity, isn't it, really? And I'm sure it's going to be a good game. So.
A double header that's taking place over the weekend in the Challenge Cup. Blaze against Devils on Saturday and the return match on the Sunday. Both teams off form at the minute, so an ideal opportunity for either side to pick up a win.
I'll go split weekend then. 2 points.
I think you're right, and I wouldn't like to say which way you split it, whether both home, both away. I think on paper, we know nobody plays on paper. They are very, very similar teams. But the event, the events at Cardiff, it is going to play on the players' minds. It's how they channel it. Do they let it get to them, or do they just go, sod it? We're going to go out. We're going to go and play for the coach.
Yeah, and
we're going to go and play for Phil. We're going to show them. Do they create that backs to the wall mentality?
And I suppose that's up to Adams now, as he's head coach, as he's on the bench. Getting his team to play that way.
Yeah. But I mean, a lot of it's about the group of players as well. Are they going to look at it and go, yeah, we want this?
Just looking at those, games, and Phil Hill could be playing in any of those sides that we've mentioned already.
That's a very good point.
Who's to say that he
could have a big say.
He could be in Coventry. You don't know, do you?
No.
You really don't know where he's going to end up. But I mean, something's got to happen in Cardiff, like we've talked about, during this show. And why not be this weekend? Adams behind the bench.
Could be the change they need.
It could be, but I really do see that as a split weekend, personally.
Final 2 games then. Caps against Fife. Is this the Caps' chance to get that all-important win?
Perfect opportunity for it, isn't it? Home game against Fife. They've got to win one. They've got to win a game one day, and that's probably, you could say, one of the better games that they'll have to try and win it.
And I suppose, just to be saying that Saturday's important to Sheffield, it's important to Fife as well.
Yeah,
I suppose a lot of that will depend on if they go and beat Sheffield, they're gonna go into that game full of confidence.
I think that's what it is this season as well. I think there's so much riding on every game that then affects the next game that you really do have to be on your game every night.
Single night,
and because it can really affect the next.
And I suppose just to come back to the Panthers for a second, that shows what a phenomenal record we already have. 12 wins out of 13. He's nothing short of an incredible start.
Yeah.
You said it earlier, Jono. They always look like they have another gear, and I think the games that I've seen, and I'm not seen as much as I would have liked of them, but they always seem to be able to keep teams at arm's length and just ratchet it up when they need to, and just about do enough to respond. And I think Corey Nilsson probably thinks there's more for them to improve on. But I like the balance of the team, and they get scoring from all 3 lines, and that's what everybody always says about the Panthers, at least for the last 2.5 seasons or so. They come out with all 3 lines can score, and then you've got Jonathan Boxer, who's a great 10th forward as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's a bit like a boxer, isn't it? That got that jab, can just keep you, but they've got that sucker punch when they need it.
Don't mention that word.
There was a whole player that said to me after the playoff semi-final 2 years ago, he said, you can cope with the first line and you can cope with the second line, but then just when you think you're going to get the breather, the third line comes on,
just as good,
which is Matt Francis, Rob Lakovitz, and now Lee Salters. Who are one of the best lines in the league, and that's where you start to struggle when you face the Panthers.
Yeah, true.
Final game to look at, Dundee against Braehead, Challenge Cup game. Again, I think that's quite a difficult one to call, with Dundee being at home where they are very, very strong.
But isn't that going to be practically a dead rubber anyway, in terms of results?
Possibly. Possibly. But we could say that both Panthers games this weekend were dead rubbers, but they were both, I thought, entertaining games.
Yeah,
But
they were.
if the Stars don't get a win on what you've labelled their season-defining game in Hull, then that game,
Vaguely.
that game at home, you know,
He's
it
cornered
may
you
be
there.
Challenge Cup, but that's massively important. Massively
they're
important to
losing
break
the
out of
Hull,
the
they're going
slump.
to want to win again. Yeah.
It's like you look at it as a Challenge Cup, but it's mental, it's performance,
Got to keep
it's
it rolling, haven't
confidence.
you? Yeah.
So
Well,
Wish I'd never said that.
yeah, you will be. It's like you're not confident, right?
I've not said that once.
Okay. I think we will leave it there for this week. Owen, thanks ever so much for coming down and joining us
Pleasure,
once
guys.
again.
Anytime.
We'll hopefully see you again later in the season.
maybe at Christmas.
Maybe at Christmas. Yeah.
Maybe.
There's always Christmas in his wardrobe.
We, of course, will be back next week. We will be looking back on all this weekend's game and, of course, the Continental Cup. But until next week, good night.